the metaverse? Is that still happening?
The biggest issue we're having now is just that the hardware has to catch up with the ideas that people have. And everyone's seen this amazing world in the movies about what they want. That's just not there yet. And it disillusions a lot of people. Yeah, hardware is going to have to get smaller and more comfortable. The average consumer today, we're already seeing, like when phone first came out, right? When I was young, they were big. They were bricks. Back then, the U.S. military spent millions of dollars on the HoloLens to get that field, and the soldiers refused to wear it. So there's things like that. Already starting to see AI starting to step in to do what traditional developers would have done, especially around the MVP stage. And I think over the next 5 years, it's going to be a huge shift. And it's not to say that developers are going to disappear. It's just that their roles are going to change, and how they approach things are going to have to change because clients are going to have more access and more ability to do things, right?
Hello, I'm Jocelyn Houle, here for BetterTech today, and we are interviewing Mark Nguyen, who's the founder of SlideFactory. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, nice to be here.
It's great to see you. I'm super excited for this interview because you work on so many really interesting hard problems that I have a million questions. So you may not get to talk that much is what I'm trying to tell you. No, just kidding. So first of all, tell us a little bit about you're the founder and CEO. Just give us the bullet. What is SlideFactory?
SlideFactory is a digital agency. We've been around for about 7 years. About 50% of our work is in emerging technologies. We work in AR, VR, and a lot of AI work. And the other half is very traditional marketing and apps and technology work.
Okay. So how would you describe the kind of customers or clients that you take on? Or your ideal clients?
It's a mix. I think some of our more interesting clients are in the startup field. So there are people who are starting a company, looking into new technologies, usually have an idea where they're trying to build something that's just a little bit different, a little bit new.
And so when you're focused on emerging technologies, where would you say your focus is right now?
It's a mix between virtual reality and a lot of AI work. So we're doing a lot of agentic development. We're doing a lot of work in the training field around VR, especially in the semiconductor space.
Well, it's interesting because it's such a intersectional work on virtual reality, right? Because you've got hardware, you've got design work, you've got a totally different user UX situation. How do you kind of put together the right team for that work? If it's starting from the whiteboard, give us a sense of like what your process is at SlideFactory for engaging with a VR client and getting them to like an MVP level.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the client and what they're looking for. Some products are very technical, which means that you're actually going into the facilities, you're recording the procedures, actually breaking down, in a very specific detail exactly what's happening, doing a lot of measurements. So you're looking for people who are very, I guess, mixed discipline, people who have a very good attention to detail, but also still understand the creative side, still understand how to break whatever they're seeing down in those very technical situations into something that we can actually build visually. When it comes to VR, because you are dealing with kind of taking those real world situations, usually working with some very heavy CAD models and some very specific machinery.
Yeah.
The hardest part is kind of transitioning that into that VR space, into something that can work with the headsets, can work with the technology, and still look and feel like they're in the actual space. So team-wise, it's always going to be, a technologist who understands how to get the most out of the hardware, and a creative who understands how to take the realism of what's there and move it into something that can work in VR.
Yeah, I don't know if our listeners know this, but it's such a specialized thing to do that kind of real world user experience that's handshaking with a software experience. It's a very special thing. I'm a software person, and anytime hardware gets involved, I kind of break out in hives. So I think I definitely want to talk more about that. I know that's not the only technology that you work on as a cutting edge new technology, but I forgot to ask you a little bit about how long you've been around and why you started this firm.
I've been around for a while. I got into the industry maybe almost 30 years ago, kind of in the early days of, I guess, the new internet, before mobile was really on the stage.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, because of that, I was lucky enough to actually work through that. So I started software development, actually working for a company that was doing a lot of government work around building like network surveillance software. And then from there, I was a designer, developer, because everybody was, a mix of things back then. Moved into the agency space where I really had the opportunity to kind of dig in and work with a really interesting client. So I was one of the designers on the early BlackBerry sites. I worked with Apple for a number of years. We got to work through the emergence of mobile as, with the companies that were actually creating it and changing it. So we got to see that world just go from that old internet to what it eventually became. And we got to be a part of that. Um, and through that whole experience, I kind of moved from design to development to taking over the studio space at the agency that I was at, building it out into a nationwide group and kind of running the 3D and motion graphics and emerging technology side of what we were doing across the nation, which kind of led me into what I do today because we were already um, building out the components of everything that was 3D and animation and emerging tech for the company.
Mm-hmm.
We got to take that knowledge and apply it to things like virtual reality as virtual reality was becoming a thing,
Mm-hmm.
and working with just a lot of really interesting clients. So we took that knowledge. Eventually, when I moved up to Oregon, I met my co-founder, and we just decided to see where it led, and we started SlideFactory.
Well, I want to talk to you a lot more about that. I've been talking to more service providers like you who are kind of doing more custom work, and I think that makes sense in the world of artificial intelligence and having so much happening right now. It does remind me of the early days of mobile, and so that's really interesting background. But let's kind of back up. I do like to just kind of set the stage for myself and all the listeners. When you're talking about first of all, is the metaverse? What's the metaverse? Is that still happening?
I don't know if it's actually still happening. I mean, a version of it's still happening. Uh, the metaverse itself, I think, was the idea that Facebook at the time came up with and decided to rebrand something that was already there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the core idea was just that it was going to be an interconnected virtual space. Everyone's seen Ready Player One at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That was the idea. The reality is, it's a very slow moving, large object that will get there eventually. I mean, it's only a matter of time before a lot of the technologies we're seeing are going to converge and actually build that space.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be tomorrow. I mean, I think we'll be lucky if it'll be within the next 5 years. Because the biggest issue we have right now is just that the hardware has to catch up with the ideas that people have. Um, and everyone's seen this, amazing world in the movies about what they want, and that's just not there yet, and it disillusions a lot of people. So the metaverse,
Yeah.
yeah, at
So
some
it's still a
point,
thing,
sure,
still chugging
still
along.
thing, yeah.
And the reason I'm asking that is like, what has to be true for the metaverse to kind of really get elevated into where consumers are going to be really engaging with it?
That,
Like, what are the big things? You just mentioned one, compute.
yeah, hardware is going to have to get smaller, smaller and more comfortable. I mean, the average consumer today, um, we're already seeing, like, when phones first came out, right? When I was younger, they were big, they were
I had one.
beefy. Yeah, they were. I mean, they were bricks back then. Um, and over time, they got smaller and smaller, and people are used to that form factor. And while they like the fidelity of larger screens, they want something light, and they don't want to be burdened with it. Mobile is the same thing, right? When you're strapping something large to your face and you're trying to walk around with it, people don't want to look stupid. They don't want to wear the big clunky glasses. So as those things shrink, as they get smaller, as they get more fashionable, people will start to adopt. But the other side is that they have to keep up with what people are already used to. They're already used to high fidelity phones. They're already used to AI that can create images in
Mm-hmm.
seconds. They want that in these devices as well. And as that hardware gets smaller, the technology again has to keep up. So it has to give people that visual fidelity that they see everywhere else. And until
Mm-hmm.
those two things can kind of merge together, I think you're gonna have a hard time getting people to adopt.
Yeah, I think that's right. Everybody has too high expectations. I think me included for all of the tech we use. But yeah, I was thinking about when talking to you, like Fei Li's work in world building, right, is also part of the metaverse space because it's going to, how do we have like a space that's evolving as you're thinking about it, as you're prompting it? I think people want to have a metaverse space that they're creating as they're going. Uh,
It's getting there. I mean, Midjourney just released their new model
mm,
for video creation from their imagery. I don't know if you've taken a look at it yet, but
mm,
the whole premise of that specific model is not for entertainment purposes. It isn't for film the way that VO2 or any of the other platforms are using. Their stated purpose was that they eventually want to be able to create virtual worlds with it, right? Immersive worlds
mhm.
using AI and prompts. So I mean, and the fidelity of the model is amazing, right? Actually, the videos that it can create and the speed that it can create is awesome. And this was just a few days ago where they're already starting to adopt AI and those prompting to create in the future virtual worlds that will be
I think that's what people are going
very
to want.
amazing.
They're gonna,
Yeah, and
eventually.
it'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you see one of the big blockers is this sort of end user form factor, which really isn't there yet, and definitely needs some design applied to it. The other kind of terminology I wanted you to help me understand is VR, AR, and XR. Why do we use these terms, and how do they relate to each other?
I honestly, I think it's just trying to find a way to get the consumers to understand it a little bit better. Virtual reality is, fully immersive. It's wrapped around you. There's no pass through, and so it is your confined virtual world. Augmented reality is applying or augmenting your environment and applying visuals on top of that environment. But augmented reality had been seen as, kind of like looking through your phones. And when people think of augmented reality, they kind of think of that. Extended reality is an extension of augmented reality, where it's basically pulling the virtual world into the physical space a little bit more deeply. So you'll
Oh,
see extended reality applied to things like the Magic Leap or the Vision Pro, and Vision Pro's even changed the name again, to their own version of it.
so
Yeah,
they're
but they're
struggling.
all
They're
flavors of the
struggling a little
same
bit with
thing.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. They should have won with that, but it's a little bit of a struggle.
it's an amazing tool. It's just it's ahead of its time, and it's going to take a while.
So I always felt like, because I come from the enterprise software world, that augmented reality would probably get traction first in specific use cases. Can you share some examples of real companies that you've built for, or examples of AR versus VR applications?
Sure. A lot of the AR that we're doing are more in the entertainment space.
Oh,
Well, you're absolutely right. Like there are industrial uses for AR where we're having conversations around those things, where they're basically wanting to use AR to as a heads up display, as technicians who are out in the field can use AR to basically walk them through how to go through specific procedures.
mm-hmm.
But a lot of the things that we're doing right now with that are more discussions, right? They want to apply those types of things. They're interested in those types of things, but the actual getting their people actually out in the field and using those things are always a risk, and so they're always stuck in the discussion
Why is
phase.
that?
Uh, I think it's because again the hardware isn't the best. I mean the U.S. military spent millions of dollars on the HoloLens to get it out the field, and the soldiers refuse to wear it. So there's things like that that are definitely hurting
It
the
gets
cause.
tricky. In real life, it gets tricky. That's right.
Yeah, and it obstructs your view. There are just problems, right? So actually putting your person out there, having them hold up their phone while they're trying to do work, have them wearing glasses, at least the older glasses while they're trying to do things, it was just hard.
Mm-hmm.
So right now when we're doing augmented reality, it's a lot of entertainment, it's games, it's we're doing some political campaigns for it, so people can actually uh, get messages out there in different ways, so they can interact with kids, that kind of thing.
Huh.
But yeah, the AR in the industrial space is, at least for us, has been slow moving.
Interesting. And so would you say, I don't know if you can categorize most of the work that you're seeing from customers in this space. And I'm sorry, you also mentioned the 3D space. Is that part of this AR, VR, or something else that?
Oh yeah, I mean the 3D space is always going to be part of AR VR, only because in order to actually build those virtual worlds or build the virtual items that are existing in that are being augmented onto the real world or pulling into the virtual spaces, those are
Mhm.
all developed in 3D.
Mm.
So again, that was kind of like my early background working in 3D, working with those tools, and that understanding that spatial environment really helps a developer and helps anybody who's working in it, and also helps you to actually build the things, because you can't build a 3D VR environment if you don't apply 3D. So it's
Mhm.
it's definitely a requirement.
One thing I'm going to bundle the answer in the question. It's kind of interesting because you have this perspective, this long view, and you came from the design side as well. You did both development and design. It's just a different type of, or is it a different type of product design process when you're working in
Oh,
3D
very.
space? Yeah. Can you tell me kind of how that works in the innovation cycle, starting from, we're sitting at the whiteboard, day one. How
Yeah,
do you?
it's that. I mean, early on, that was one of our biggest problems was as so like I was lucky enough that very early on when Magic Leap was kind of still in its infancy, to be one of the teams that was pulled in to kind of help out with the visuals, like what would it
The
be?
magic leap?
So we're yeah, it's now it's It's grown since then, so it's changed a lot. But
What
this
is
is
it? I don't know
maybe
what it is.
it's an augmented reality headset. It's kind of like the HoloLens or kind of like the Vision Pro.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and yeah, it was one of the ones that
I have a
early on.
HoloLens.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's so many different flavors of HoloLens. There's lots of different headsets out there. Magic
Okay.
Leap is one of them, and they've gotten bigger over the last couple of years. But early on, maybe 12, 15 years ago, at this point I lose track. It's probably even longer than that. When they were,
I don't understand time anymore. That's a different podcast in which
yeah.
we'll cover the physics of time, which no longer applies to me.
So they pulled us in at my last agency, and they had us basically trying to figure out the question you're asking, right? How do you build interfaces in this new virtual world that's coming, and how do you visualize those things? Are they 3D interfaces that are kind of like people have to use their hands, they have to interact? Are they flat interfaces that float in front of you? So we got to explore that a lot. And one of the things that we found were that traditional designers have a really hard time visualizing interfaces in a 3D space. You'd think it would be easy because you're in a 3D world all the time, right? You're working in a spatial environment. You have things in front of you. You have a computer. You have buttons that
Mm-hmm.
you press. So you would think that it would be something that a lot of people just immediately grasp. But I think a lot of people who work in hardware or are building interfaces for cars or other things already realize that it's a very hard problem to solve, and it compounds when you're dealing with the idea that there's nothing physical right now. So when you're driving a car, you have the steering wheel. Your arms can rest on the steering wheel, and it can support the weight. And there are things there that help that interface.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dealing with virtual reality or augmented reality, those don't exist.
And
So
it's
not
a whole
only
new thing. Maybe you're on another planet. You're not driving a car. It's kind of interesting because if you were to drive a car, you could observe me driving a car and understand what
yeah,
I'm doing. But in a new
exactly.
product, there's
Yeah,
nothing
so
there.
how do you visualize that, right? You're at a whiteboard, the whiteboard is flat. You're trying to build for an environment that is definitely not flat. So the first thing designers tend to do is draw boxes, right? So they draw boxes on the screen. They say, well, this is the interface, these are the buttons, and they start to cram everything into this small space because it's floating directly in front of you. And again, the issue is that that doesn't work. I mean, like, yes, maybe a floating button and here or there would work. But the Minority Report interface, where things are floating all around
Mm-hmm.
you, it's unrealistic. People get tired. You can't wave your arms around and actually interact with that many things
And it's
without
not better. It's
something
not
to
better than
support
what
it.
we have today. It's not
Yeah,
fundamentally
exactly.
better. That's the interesting
And
part of it. I mean, the whole category is better, but like what you just described of like just having, a wraparound screen in virtual space, I agree. Why would that be better? It just seems more exhausting.
and so they tend to go back to old tropes, right? Like a keyboard or again, just a windowed interface, but it's floating in front of you. And so
Mm-hmm.
they tend to lean towards that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's usually the biggest problem when you're just discussing like how do UX designers approach it.
Why do you
So
think
that's
that
where
is,
kind
out
of
of curiosity? And by the way, thanks for
it's
using the word trope. That's one of my favorites. Um, but why
yeah.
do you like just cognitive? Is it a cognitive thing, or we just haven't built that muscle as designers? I'm just curious. You have an opinion on that? Why is
I,
it harder for designers to make the switch?
I think it's a training thing.
Okay.
I don't know if you were around like when in the early days when print designers were transitioning over to the web, right?
Hmm.
You'd find people that are like, I've been a designer for years. I've been designing for print. I can definitely design a website. Then you'd see these websites and they were atrocious, right? They were the most horrible
Hmm.
things that you'd ever see. And it's because they were trained in a way that made sense when they were in the medium that they were in. Just like UX designers today, or not all of them today. I mean, there are a lot of really good ones that are
Of
working
course, right.
spatially, but most of them are still approaching it as if it's a web page, right? They've been doing this for 5 to 10 years. They've been working in this space. That's what they know. They know the confines of the browser. They know they need to work with mobile. They understand these things. But they take that knowledge and they take that experience and they apply it to a 3D space. And I think it's their go-to. It's what they know. It's what they've been trained.
It's
They feel
it's
like
a
it should work.
it's a really actually it's you shouldn't have hubris about this because it can get any of us. I felt that way when I started really working with cloud architectures. I still couldn't get out of the stack in my mind, and to
Oh
really
yeah,
even though I thought I did, there would just be times when I would do something I would think, oh, this is really the old thinking. It sneaks up on
yeah,
you.
yeah, and it gets you in trouble, right? Like when you do something the way you believe it should be done because that's the way you've always done it and it's always historically worked. And then it doesn't. It throws you off, and then suddenly you're wondering, like, why is my interface broken? Why is my site going down every 5 minutes? What is actually going on? And you basically have to reset and rethink it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious in the like, let's take the web design world. There's like some principles, some known knowns of what's going to work, what people are going to like, what they're going to click on next, for the most part, of how to kind of, uh, you know, not only be aesthetically pleasing, but functional for most users. I could probably list like 10 things that I know about that. But are there known knowns? Have we learned something about the AR and VR world that are absolute no-nos, or like you absolutely must have this experience in order to be successful with that interface?
I'd say the no-nos are, don't throw windows everywhere to solve a problem. Stay away from the folder under folder and the infinitely scrolling interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've learned that as people are interacting, understanding spatial distance matters, like how far someone has to reach, how far a button is, and if you're using buttons, understanding again that a person has to support the own weight of their hands, which sounds stupid, but it's true, right? You have to lift your hand up, and if you're standing in your virtual space, there's effort involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to reach the things that you want to interact with without having to move too far, especially if you are confined or if you're in a chair. So it's
Yeah, that's
understanding
interesting. I
those
would
types of
expect that
things.
would like build trust too with the experience.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's I think the best gauge is if if you can drop someone into a virtual world and they can just immediately start interacting. They understand it. They just start walking around and they're not fumbling for buttons or menus or things. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what you're at least getting to a successful point.
So, how do you collect information on whether you're working on this cutting edge type of technologies? You're working in spaces like entertainment, gaming that are changing so fast. Um, how do you measure the success of the work you've given to your customers and clients?
Usually through testing for us. So
Mm.
if it's a training application, it's we do a lot of testing to make sure like are people getting sick? Are they getting nauseous? How long can they be in the headsets? Are they able to actually go through the different interactions? Is it breaking every 5 steps? So it is a lot of user testing and just a lot of QA.
Hmm.
Um, just like anything else, you can apply metrics to it, right? So you can put analytics on things, you can test buttons, you can test interactions, you can see how long someone's in an experience and what's going on. But that, at least for us, it's still very traditional. It's a lot of analytics, it's a lot of QA, and it's a lot of just monitoring, making sure things are
Interesting.
going the way you expect.
That's interesting. And you're also building a lot of agents for
We are,
customers.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Can you share some use cases or some customer stories with us about what types of agents people want you to build for them?
Sure. What can I talk about? So right now we're dealing with. I'll speak in broad terms. Um,
Can
we're
you give
building.
this all their 10Ks? No, just kidding.
Yeah. So we're doing a lot of work with agentic systems where we're building profiles on individuals. Basically, building systems that they connect their services to, call it LinkedIn or Blue Sky or their website, will then grab the information from those different sources, analyze the person, how they write, how they speak, who they are, build an agentic profile of that person, and then from that agentic profile, be able to um, interact with those different tools. So for you, for instance, we might connect your LinkedIn profile to it. It would ingest your profile. It would build a profile on you that the agent could then reference and use.
Hmm.
We could then, if you connected your website or something else to it, we then grab that. We'd analyze your writing style, who you are, and then from there we can actually interface with that tool and post for you. So it
Like a
can act
digital
as
twin.
you. Yeah, exactly. Maybe not as advanced as like the 3D version. There are clients doing that as well, where they're building out actual like who could actually be on this podcast and they can answer questions, and you would see their video and they would talk to you. So those also exist, uh,
Hmm.
but those are much more complicated, and they're still early infancy, and those are things we'll talk about some other time. But
Hmm. Hmm.
the ones we're doing now are more interacting with uh, the actual websites. Like they're creating blog entries for the user. They're allowing you to connect your analytics, and then you can speak to the data as if it's an actual person.
Right.
So you can ask it like, "What's going on with my site? What's happening? Can you show me this report? Can you do this for me?
Everybody wants
Can you?"
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then take that data and write a blog post for me about it, as if you are me, or if someone writes to my site, go to my website, look at all the information, answer their questions as if you're a QA person or as if you're me, and go from there.
One of the questions I had for you is, in the investment world, in the software world, I feel like everyone says, well, just build it yourself. You want, you want a digital twin, just build it yourself. Why can't people build it themselves yet? Why should they come to you?
I mean, they can. If you're an infrastructure person, if
Theoretically,
you're a cloud
yes.
person, yeah, it's like saying, yeah, you could totally throw something up in AWS and it'll just work. It'll work great, right? Like you
Hmm.
could. EBS is amazing. You could get something spun up. In most cases, it'll probably work. But when you're dealing with agentic tools, like
Hmm.
there are a lot of great workflow tools that you can use that you could build yourself, and you can actually build some really amazing uh, just your own personal tools that even agentic tools that do things. The downside is as they start to get bigger, as they start to interact more with your tools or represent you, having some control and understanding what they're actually doing is important,
Hmm.
especially if you're letting them in your systems and you're letting them actually make changes, not just talk to you about what's there, but do something, right? Like add to your database or add to your website.
Take an action
You
on
want
your
to have
behalf.
Yeah, you definitely want to have some kind of control and understanding what's going on. But people they can go to Lovable, they can go to these different places, and they can build these tools very quickly. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially for MVP tools. But I would say understand what the code is that you're making. If you connect, if you're experimenting with Cursor and you're a client, you connect it to your systems and you're like, hey, add this button to my website. It may definitely add a button. It may destroy your entire website and remove all your code, but the button will be there and it'll be amazing. So there's just things you want to make sure that they're actually going to work and that you're going to check them.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of folks. Actually, I will date myself, and I sort of remember when the web happened. We had the internet, and then the web happened, and everyone's like, "Well, my nephew can build a website overnight." It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
well, I know
Yeah,
he
and that
can't.
that comes every generation, right? It was like my nephew can build a website. My nephew has a video camera. He can shoot a video. And yeah, they can. They definitely can. Is it going to be good? Is it going to
And it
is it
looks
going to
good.
work? Is
It
it
looks good for a
right?
single
Yeah.
use or a small company, or but then it gets tricky. And I think especially in the cloud world, if you want to be an entrepreneur, this is an idea. Like if anybody's listening out there and like, I'm going to call Mark. I got my killer idea, right? And I want him to build it. I think one thing to consider is it's good to have experienced builders because of the cloud costs that can coincide here. It can be some really nasty surprises into like the thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and the same is true with agents. You're connecting them to systems that are charging you incrementally as you use them.
Hmm.
If you have an agentic system that goes insane, right, and just starts making millions of requests, you're going to pay for those requests just like you're going to pay for anything else.
There's
So
no
it is.
backsies.
Yeah, definitely understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And it's not to say that people shouldn't jump in and try to build these things themselves because they definitely can. It's fun to experiment, and it's very easy now to do that. Um, but just
I
like
imagine that's
anything, as
helpful
you
for
get,
you too. It's like prototyping.
oh yeah, and we do it all the time. It's so much easier today, even within the last 6 months, right, to throw together a prototype and get something working very quickly. Where
Hmm.
historically maybe it would have taken you 3 weeks, 4 weeks to actually just get that roughing done. But the
Hmm.
reality is like you can sit down and maybe in an afternoon or a day, you can actually get something rough working and it'll work well. And so like it definitely helps us. We don't discourage our clients from doing it. Again, we just really want them to make sure they understand what it is they did, why they did it. Are they adding any security vulnerabilities? Is there
Hmm.
a reason, or have they really looked through the code to make sure that whatever they did is doing what they expected to do and isn't going to cause a problem later?
And how about in your own internal processes? We talked a little bit about your building agents, and you are doing that for your customers. Have you started, or like I'm sure you have? What agents and tools do you use to make SlideFactory more effective?
We use for our development processes, we're using Cursor. I mean, everyone's using Cursor. We're exploring some. My CTO would answer the deeper tech tools better. But outside of Cursor for our IDE, we are trying to integrate other tools from Visual Studio.
Hmm.
We're using things like N8N to build the workflows in the background for people. Make.com is another really simple tool. We don't necessarily use Lovable that much, but our clients do, and so we're working with them around that. Then there's your standard tools, right? Like we're using Gemini a lot in terms of like generating large content types.
Hmm.
We're always using the OpenAI framework or the APIs in the back end. We haven't been using Claude as much recently, unless it's around Cursor and those tools. But there's always a good mix of different models.
Different tools for different things, right? It depends on
Yeah.
what you're doing. It's still really true. Like I use Perplexity, Claude, and ChatGPT in totally different ways because they have just different outcomes. And of course, then the models change. You get different.
Yeah.
So
And that's what they're for, right? To use them in different ways. Like some of them are great for deep research, some of them are great for coding, and some of them
correct.
are going to be better for just writing content. So that I guess that's another important thing. Is just if you're going to play with the tools, understand what the tools actually do and which ones you should use best, right? It's like deciding when to use After Effects versus Premiere. Just use the right one, and things will go a lot smoother.
That's a great analogy. I'm going to steal that. Um, is there anything coming up? We're kind of coming to the end of time, and as you, our producers may have shared with you, we like to do like rapid fire at the end, where you give me some one word answers.
Right.
Is there anything coming up for Slide Factory in terms of like announcements, or are you? I know you do some speaking occasionally. Anything else do you want to make sure that we talk about for Slide Factory?
We just did our last speaking engagement down in Medford a few weeks ago. Nothing planned at the moment, other than just kind of just standard day to day.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
we had some fun projects coming up, but again, those are kind of future projects that we can't really talk too much about right now.
Okay, so if you have a crazy, hard, leading, not bleeding, but leading edge idea in the 3D or virtual reality space or in the agentic space, you're the person to call, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, reach out. We love the interesting ones. The old joke used to be if it was weird and you're trying to figure it out, call Slide Factory and those guys will help you. So it's been it's worked for us over the past, and
I think that's actually
they're
very
always fun.
special. I think that's very special. A lot of people are trying to just really, it's good to routinize and standardize innovation, but also you kind of can't.
Oh
Like
yeah,
real
and
innovation.
and the thing is like you don't really know what it's going to take to do a weird problem until you actually jump in and do a weird problem. Like I still
Right?
think and I don't know how much time we have, but one of my favorite projects that came to us over the last few years was a project where we had a client reach out and they had told us they had worked with another company and it hadn't gone well, and they had told them that what they were trying to do was impossible, and it was just a lot of quaternion data that they had that
Mhm.
they needed to just take all this random quaternion data with absolutely no insight into what it was doing and then turn it into a human avatar. Or like, okay, so you have random rotational data that you have no idea which way things are pointing, what they're connected to, or what they are, and you need to turn that into a person. They're like, yeah, we're like, cool, let's try this. And that was
You're
just
like, I don't
one of
know
the
the
most fun
answer
projects we
either,
had.
but we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, but we it took a few months, and it was like one of those 4 a.m. epiphanies where suddenly you're playing with the different sensors, and suddenly you start to see a person turn into a thing, and it's amazing. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, no, making truly new things is a special kind of, it's an art and a science, I think. And I feel like if you're an entrepreneur and you're engaging with agencies or organizations like yours to do a build, it's worth thinking about. If your idea is really out there, you may need some special type of innovation sources, and it doesn't really fit into the factory model for innovation. Like, oh, we're just going to MVP this thing, and it's important to spend time with an organization like yours that is not intimidated by
Yeah,
hard problems,
yeah,
you know,
we like those. Yeah.
and weirdly likes them. Well, listen, just a few quick, and it doesn't have to be one word answers, but just a few quick items. In your life, as you think about your heroes in the tech world, and it could be like past or current, like who are some people you follow and think are, who's your Bill Gates?
Uh, I it's hard recently. I follow so many different. Yeah, I follow a
It
lot of
doesn't
different
have to
people,
be, it
and
doesn't, like, who
I mean,
is a tech
hit,
leader you think about as an inspiration?
historically, just because of my age group, like I'm gonna go back to the older
Yeah.
right? Like I'm always gonna say Steve Jobs, just because of what he did. I mean, uh, man aside, the things that he actually did during my lifetime, the things that he changed, and the hole he left in the industry and technology, and you can still feel that to this day.
Hmm.
But I think that's someone I'm always going to admire.
That's a good answer. Is there a particular what industry do you think is going to be the most transformed by AI?
Uh, I think it's going to be development. I think you're already starting to see um, AI starting to step in to do what traditional developers would have done, especially around the MVP stage.
Hmm.
And I think over the next 5 years, it's going to be a huge shift. And
Hmm.
it's not to say that developers are going to disappear. It's just that their roles are going to change and how they approach things are going to have to change because clients are going to have more access and more ability to do things, right? Whether they're good things or whether it's at least getting things started. So how you approach a problem, how you fix a problem, and even the things you're looking for are going to be different. So definitely development.
What do you think is like an underrated leadership quality?
An underrated leadership quality. I think it's just talking to your people. It's you're never going to be able to spend hours and hours with everybody, but I think just walking around, saying hello, trying to figure out what's going on, and figuring out what's going on with their life is important. I think a lot of people just ignore that.
Just out of curiosity, how do you stay informed and up to speed on these very like leading edge technologies?
A lot of reading, a lot of YouTube, and a lot of just doom scrolling LinkedIn to just see what's out there.
Do you have any influencers or industry experts you follow that you would recommend to the audience?
I
Newsletters?
am horrible with names, honestly.
Me
Yeah,
too. Me too. I'm the worst. So it's fine. I deal with people all day. I'm kind of a people focused job, and I wish I were better with names, to be honest with you. It's really great to talk with you. I have a special place in my heart for the service business where you're kind of creating the magic trick of getting off the whiteboard and into real reality or virtual reality. So it's been great to speak with you. We'll add some more links in the show notes for those of who may want to engage with you further to build their new hard idea. Mark Nguyen from SlideFactory, it was great to chat with you.
It's great to meet you also.